Got my eyes straight ahead, got my head in the game. With the red light on, I'm just waiting for the change. Keep my head down low.
Hi, Jay Fallon here, obviously. Thanks for listening to The Slippery Slope. So before we go any further, I have recorded another episode, which I'm going to put out probably tomorrow. It'll be titled Sex and Culture. So I've been having a look at some writings. One of the main ones belonged to J.D. Unwin regarding, or it's titled, go figure, Sex and Culture. And his findings on how cultures over the millennia, human history, have basically decayed after they've had a sexual revolution. So, and just seeing the what he describes as monotonous repetition, and you're seeing this degradation of society, and it just constantly it's basically just on a loop. Society, civilizations will reach a certain standard, will reach a pinnacle, and basically they'll have this like a sexual revolution or something going on. Once the culture, not necessarily a revolution, I suppose, but once the culture changes and the acceptance of things within the sexual identity in civilizations slips and starts to degrade, and then you can see how those cultures will fade away. They'll be taken over by uh, other cultures or destroyed from within. So I've got a very clumsy podcast regarding that. I say clumsy because I'm reading it. It's very Unwin's book, very interesting. His findings are very interesting. And then I was taking a lot of the details was from a writer that I found online who'd done a report on the book and on some other on another book, I think by Mary Ergestein. Uh, Interesting topics, interesting writings. Anyway, that will be out. It's probably not my usual thing, but it's stuff that I'm interested in because it shows uh, how our culture slowly declining, the slippery slope that we're on. Anyway, not here to talk about that right now. Going to talk about this article that came out. ScoMo. ScoMo is in the news. Look, I ScoMo, Scott Morrison, if you don't know who I'm talking about, our former Prime Minister. I really he was on the nose for me a long time ago. He was the one who was he was, leading our government. He was our Prime Minister when the pandemic came about. Stood there in front of the television cameras telling us all, hey, the government's not going to bring in mandates. We're not going to do this. The federal government's not going to bring in any mandates. People will have a choice. And I think why it irked me so much is because he claims, and I, okay, trying to be forgiveness, trying to have forgiveness. He is a Christian. He claims to be a Christian, a believer. And I suppose, I'm not saying that he's not. I'm not about to sit there and judge and say that he is not a believer in Christ. He's not born again or anything like this. However, there are so many things when he was prime minister that I personally think if he didn't just outright lie, he at least left out portions of the truth. He tended to have a lot of omit the truth, leave out certain details, and to make himself, I think, look good. And he didn't just tell you he just, I can respect someone a lot more if they can just be brutally honest. But sometimes it seemed like he's very much just a politician. And and I wasn't a fan also because he was Well, at the time when he first got elected, he seemed to have such a very close ties to Brian Houston and the Hillsong Church, uh, which I'm personally of the opinion that the Australian church, a lot of the issues that we have now, the Australian Christian church has a lot of issues because of Brian Houston and the way that when he was the head of Hillsong, um, especially when he was the head of the Australian, I think the Australian Christian Churches, ACCC or something like that it's called, when he was the head of that organization, because because of some of the doctrines that he believes, some of the teachings that he believes, which I think are a little off. I don't think are very that biblical. So ScoMo was very much a friend of Brian Houston and the Hillsong Church, which I think has caused a lot of issues in the Australian Christian Church over the decades. And then when things went bad for Brian, as they did, we all probably know about that. ScoMo was very quick to wash his hands of him. Now, and again, I can respect someone. We all have friends and we all do it. We all do things. We all fall. We all do things wrong. But, I'll respect someone who can stand by stand by their friend and say, "Oh, okay, I can look and say, well, that person did something wrong, but I considered them a friend then, and I will still stand by and consider them a friend now. I can look at what they did and say, yep, that was wrong, but I can still show them compassion and mercy. Whereas, in my opinion, Prime Minister Scott Morrison just washed his hands of Brian Houston. And as much as I don't agree with so many things that Brian Houston taught and so many things that he did, uh, I think that if someone has been your friend in the past, you should not just wipe your hands of them. We all make mistakes. We all fall. We all stumble. Anyway, all this, it's a long introduction. This article, which I think I've already brought up anyway. Morrison accuses UN of anti-Semitism, decries persecution of Australian Jews. So, former PM Scott Morrison has accused the United Nations of anti-Semitism at a rally in Sydney, while warning a two-state solution to the Israel-Palestinian conflict is not currently viable. I would say it's not viable at all, ScoMo. And if you I won't say that, but look, this is part of the problem with ScoMo, Scott Morrison. I think he's I think he's got a hold of some wrong teaching when it comes to what the Bible says about Israel, and this is why uh, he's still warning, he's still talking about a two-state solution. So thousands gathered in the Domain on Sunday for the event organised by a Christian pastor to support members of the Jewish community under the slogan "Never Again is Now." Thank goodness, I'm so glad a Christian pastor has set this up, even though I don't agree with ScoMo and all that. At least we have some Christians out there with the nous, the courage to stand by the Jewish community and maybe point out the hypocrisy of these Palestinian supporters and the hypocrisy of Hamas. Continuing on, Morrison, who travelled to southern Israel with former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson in the aftermath of the October 7 terror attacks, told Jewish members of the crowd, "We honour you as fellow Australians. We are deeply sorry," Morrison said. "Sadly, instead of finding consolation, on too many occasions you find isolation and even abandonment and even persecution. In this, a free country, instead of safety, you were confronted with threats and even hatred." Morrison, who recently announced his retirement from Parliament, outlined examples of conduct he labelled anti-Semitism, including calls for the extinction of the State of Israel from the river to the sea, and comparing Israeli government policies to those of Nazi Germany. Don't be deceived, please. When you hear these people saying Palestine from the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free, the what that actually means, the only way you can have Palestine from the river to the sea is if you don't have Israel anymore. So when all these people stand up and they talk about having peace, they talk about, they talk about wanting freedom for Palestine, and they talk about from the river to the sea, what they're really saying, the part that they're not saying out loud, is that they want the complete annihilation and destruction of Israel and the decimation of the Jewish population. That's what they're saying. That's what from the river to the sea means. Don't be deceived. That's what it actually means. These are not peaceful, fun loving people. They're terrorists. Applying double standards by requiring of Israel behavior not expected or demanded of any democratic nation. That is anti-Semitism, he said. And we have seen that in the United Nations. The former Liberal leader did not elaborate on his criticism of the United Nations, but later warned against equating the Hamas terror attacks with Israel's military action in Gaza. The UN's International Court of Justice ruled last month that Israel must do everything in its power to prevent acts of genocide against Palestinians. Morrison called for a lasting and deep peace that went beyond the absence of conflict and spoke in favor of a two-state solution, which drew boos from some in the crowd. Can I add my boo to your two-state solution? There can't be a two-state solution, and it's not even biblical. This is what annoys me with Morrison. Okay, his claims, and like I said, I'm not going to say he's not, but talking about being a Christian and all this, and if a two-state solution is not biblical, not as far as I know. Okay, anyway, continue on. However, he said the violent acts of Hamas betray a future for the Palestinian people, and they condemn any future for a viable Palestinian state. He says, we do need two states that are interested in the development of their own positive society, not the extermination of their neighbors, he said. At present, the competence of such a second state and free state beyond Israel is not present. Liberal MP Julian Lisa said anti-Semitism was found in far-left politics and that Greens parliamentarians think Jews have tentacles, which is a reference to comments made by New South Wales Greens MP Jenny Leong. Leong had spoke of the tentacles of the Jewish lobby at an event in December, but has since apologised for the inappropriate descriptor. Senator Jackie Lambie drew one of the biggest cheers from the crowd when railing against Hamas. Now, I'm about to do my best Jackie Lambie impression. Don't email me saying how bad it was. I know it's bad. This is Jackie Lambie and what she said. Quote, the only good terrorist is a bloody dead terrorist, she said. That's my best Jackie Lambie that's my best Jackie Lambie impression. Post-Palestine organisers have continued to hold events in Sydney protesting Israel's actions in Gaza, with another scheduled for next weekend. Constantly having these pro-Palestinian marches, protests going on. About time we saw someone standing up, some group standing up in support of Israel and the Jewish community within Australia. Still not in favor of everything Scott Morrison does, but good to see him actually standing up for something. Standing up for something. Yeah, it'd be good to hear him talk out a little more about in favor of the Jewish community, standing up for them even more. Again, it'd be good if Albanese came out and fervently cried out against these pro-Hamas and pro-Palestinian marches that keep going on in our nation. I think it just shows it shows the lack of education and how easily people are led into a false narrative. And yeah, I know I'm going to get comments from all these pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian people, whatever. Seriously, do some research on actual history on Israel and the Palestinian people. And before you start commenting. That's all my opinion. Thanks for listening to The Slippery Slope.
They just fuel a desire that will take me high.